Well, hey there, and welcome to Unmistakably You. It is Wednesday, and I am here with you as always to share some wedding planning tips and tricks and hopefully help you to navigate the wedding planning with some calm and some grace. I'm Amy from Unmistakably You, and I'm a wedding planner and educator here in London, Ontario. And I join you every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock to talk about things that you might be navigating in your wedding planning. If you've been following us through January and February, you know that we have been doing a booking tips series called Setting You Up for Success. And this is aimed at those of you who are newly engaged. So if you are newly engaged, oh my gosh, congratulations. We're so happy for you. We are hopeful that you are starting your wedding planning journey on the right foot and excited and organized, and all of the things are lining up perfectly. If not, we are more than happy to help you get those ducks in a row. So we are wedding planners. We help you in any way that you need it, from full service planning to day of coordination and everything in between. So don't hesitate to reach out if you are newly engaged and you're finding the planning a little bit daunting. Probably the words that we hear most often are stressed and overwhelmed, and we certainly don't want that for any of you. So we are here to help. As always, if you're joining us live, feel free to pop a comment in and say hi, or ask a question, or write your thoughts. If you're joining us on the replay, of course, pop in a comment and give us your thoughts or your questions. Or if you have direct questions that you want to email me, amy@unmistakably.com, more than happy to help. I am seeing some weird flickering on my screen, so I'm hoping that's not translating into the stream. But please let me know in the comments if things are wonky. My internet has been seriously weird lately, so waiting for that to be redone. But hopefully all things tech are good and we can just carry on with our chat here. So tonight we are talking about booking tips for your DIY bar. Now, not everybody has the luxury of doing your own bar. And to be honest, some might not call it a luxury. It kind of depends on the lens that you're filtering your wedding planning through. If you are perhaps on a tight budget or hoping to keep things as low cost as possible, doing your own bar is a definite benefit because you can absolutely save a substantial amount of money. I generally, for very, very rough estimation purposes, assume that if you are purchasing your own alcohol and mix and ice and all that jazz, that it's going to cost you about $3 a drink, depending, of course, on your alcohol choices. You know, if you're going with mostly domestics, then you're on the lower end of the scale. If you're going with mostly imported or premium liquors or beers or wines, then you're on the higher end of the scale. But generally speaking, if you assume $3 to $3.50 per drink, you are dramatically still lower than paying venues pricing, which is often $6 to $7 to $8 per drink. So if you are doing your own bar, there are obviously some cost savings. There are also some flexibility things to consider. You know, if you are at a venue that has a set liquor bar rail, if you are at a venue that is contracted with a particular alcohol supplier, then you may be limited in your choices. Whereas if you're doing your own bar, you can legitimately bring in any alcohol, beer, wine, coolers, anything like that that you would like. So there are benefits both ways. If you're DIYing your bar, there are definitely a lot more considerations in terms of the behind the scenes things to think about. And I'm going to shine a light on a couple of those today. Now, realistically, there are so many things to consider when you're doing your own bar that I could talk for hours and hours, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. It's my birthday, and I'm going to try and keep this concise because I have a book that I want to go read, and I want to sit and kind of have some downtime. So if you have questions at any point about any of your bar related stuff, I'm more than happy to chat. We also actually did a series when COVID first kind of started. It was a couple of years ago, but we did a series about DIY bar stuff, and it was actually very if I do say so myself, educational and comprehensive. And you can find that over on our YouTube channel. So we have a playlist that is completely dedicated to your DIY bar. So if you are doing things yourselves, please pop over there. There's far more information than I can possibly cover tonight. But let's just kind of launch into a couple of things that are going to be very top of mind for you if you are running your own bar. And first and foremost, I care about you. I want you to have a great experience with your wedding as a whole. And under no circumstances do I ever want anything to go wrong or to come back and bite you in the ass after the fact. And so that's why my first thing to talk about tonight is that you, if you're doing your own bar, need to follow the CYA principle. You need to cover your ass. So first thing you need to understand is the difference between whether you need a permit or whether you need a sale permit or whether you need a non-sale permit. So first and foremost, when I talk about alcohol permits, sometimes people will call them licenses. They are issued by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. So you can find the application at agco.ca, Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario.ca. There's all kinds of information on there. But to illustrate kind of the difference between those three kinds of permits, let me just kind of fill you in. First of all, if you are having a wedding on private property that you own or that a friend or a family member owns, you do not need a license or a permit. It's kind of like having guests over to your house for a dinner party. You wouldn't have to have an alcohol permit for that. And I mean, you can get one, absolutely, if you're hosting your wedding on private property. But realistically, as soon as you have that permit in place, you are legally obligated to notify the authorities that alcohol is being served. And if you do that, you're basically giving them the notification that there's alcohol being served and giving them the opportunity to set up a ride check right down the street from your venue. Now, of course, we want to always encourage people to drink responsibly. And I'm not saying, like, don't get a permit so that we don't have a ride check so we can escape that and let people drive drunk. Absolutely not what I'm saying. We want to keep people safe at all times. Absolutely. But just to kind of put that on your radar, that if you're on private property, you do not need that license or that alcohol permit. And it just forces you to jump through a few more hoops if you do choose to go with an alcohol permit for a private property event. Now, if you are at a property that is owned by someone else who is charging you a facility rental fee, like let's say a barn or a hall that doesn't carry their own liquor license, any kind of venue that is going to allow you to run your own bar, you are going to require a liquor license. So you're going to go to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission website and you're going to apply for a license. Now, there are two different kinds of licenses you can get. One is a sale permit and one is a non-sale permit. With sale permits, that is what you're going to need if you are selling your alcohol, if you're having a cash bar or a toonie bar or any kind of money is changing hands for alcohol. Now, the assumption that the Alcohol and Gaming Commission makes with a sale permit is that you are selling it for a profit. So oftentimes with a wedding, you're literally just looking to break even. You're looking to not lose money on the bar if you're doing a cash bar. You're not looking to make money. So from that perspective, it's probably quite pricey to go with the sale permit because it's an increased cost. It's going to cost you about $150 at the time of recording to get a sale permit, which isn't huge, but they are also going to, at the liquor store, when you buy your alcohol, charge you a levy on all of the alcohol that you purchase, because their assumption is that you're running some kind of a festival or something where you're selling the drinks at a profit and you're making a ton of money. So just to be aware that if you do have a sale permit, there are additional costs associated with that because the assumption is that you are making money on the sale of those drinks. So you're going to want to think a little bit about how much you're selling the drinks for if you are having a sale event. Now, the vast majority of weddings have open bars, or what we call host bars, where you, the couple, are paying for the alcohol for your guests. If that's the case and you're running your own bar, you need a non-sale permit, and that at time of recording is going to cost you $50 in Ontario. And what that does is it allows you to purchase the alcohol and give it away for free, but it does require, either with a non-sale or with a sale permit, that you notify the appropriate authorities that alcohol is being served. So again, if you're doing this, give me a call, give me an email. I'm happy to talk you through this. I have a PDF that talks you through where to contact the police and the fire and the municipality to notify them that alcohol is being served. That's something that you do have to do with a sale or a non-sale permit. But with a non-sale permit, you don't have that additional levy on the purchase of the alcohol. And it basically just says that you're giving away alcohol to your guests for free. So that in most cases is what you are going to need permit-wise. And with regard to those permits, there are all kinds of other regulations that play into things. I mean, you have to serve your alcohol within a delineated perimeter. So you have to have some kind of barrier that that sets apart the alcohol service area from the non-alcohol service area. And there are all kinds of ways that you can do that. If your property has a fence, that usually suffices. You can create a barrier even with just like shepherd's hooks and ribbons, if that's what it comes down to. But there are definitely some stipulations that you have to follow if you have purchased a alcohol permit for yourself, because you are purchasing the alcohol. Now, Jessica actually just asked a really great question, which I was just about to get to. So thank you, Jessica, for that. Jessica says, do you have to buy the alcohol with the permit, or can you buy in advance? That is something else that is stipulated by the government of Ontario. If you know anything about the government, you know that they need to get a piece of every pie. Hopefully there are no government employees watching. Sorry if so, but it's the truth. So the government stipulates that if you purchase a special occasion permit, you do have to have all of the alcohol that is being served at the event on that permit. So what that means is that you have to purchase all of your alcohol at an Ontario licensed facility, so at the LCBO or at the beer store, and you have to have the permit in hand. So you have to apply for your permit prior to purchasing any alcohol, and then you have to staple your receipts for the purchase of any alcohol to your permit, and you have to have your permit at the bar. So the idea here is that in the event that an alcohol inspector shows up, you need to be able to prove that you've purchased everything in Ontario, that you've paid the appropriate taxes on it, and that you haven't gone to the duty free or gone cross-border shopping or anything like that. So it's unfortunate because you can't save the money by purchasing alcohol at other locations where you wouldn't necessarily have to pay the Ontario taxes. But it is unfortunately a stipulation of the special occasion permit. So if you're on private property in your backyard, you can buy your alcohol wherever you want. But if you are at a venue that is charging you to use the venue, or if you are required by your venue to have that special occasion permit, you do have to purchase all of the alcohol with the permit number in hand, and you have to staple your receipts to that permit. So the second thing that falls into the CYA category is insurance. If you are holding the license for the alcohol, ultimately the liability associated with it falls to you. And this is a situation that I would never want to see anybody in. You know, God forbid anything happens, there's an accident or an incident or something happens that's alcohol related. Technically, if there were to be a lawsuit, it would fall back on you as the supplier of the alcohol, and you could be liable for the result of whatever lawsuit was filed. Now, if you're at a hotel or a golf course, obviously they have insurance up the wazoo, and they're going to cover all of your alcohol liability because they pay a ton of money in insurance to cover their end of things. But if you are holding your own liquor license, that liability could fall to you. So it's not a huge expense by any stretch, but I would absolutely advise that if you are holding the liquor license, that you also purchase some alcohol liability insurance. And what that's going to do is to cover your ass in the event of a lawsuit. There are three ways basically that you can cover your butt with alcohol liability. One is to go to your home insurance provider and ask if they are able to facilitate some kind of alcohol liability product. Now, oftentimes your insurance provider will go to a number of different insurance brokers and they will find a couple of options for you. Sometimes it's going to be more affordable, but usually it's going to take longer than just getting the insurance yourself. So there are two ways you can get the insurance yourself. One is to go through PAL, P-A-L, which stands for Party Alcohol Liability. And you can go to palcanada.ca.com, maybe. Sorry, should have checked that. But if you Google PAL Canada, P-A-L, you'll be able to find their website and you can input the details of your event. They're going to ask you things like date, time. Make sure you put the time as 1 a.m. the next day. If you're serving alcohol until past midnight, just make sure you have your dates in order. They're going to ask you number of guests, kind of event, a couple of details that pertain to your particular circumstances. And then they're going to give you a quote immediately. That quote is likely to be somewhere between $200 and $300. And let me tell you, it is probably the best $300 that you'll spend, just from the perspective of knowing that your butt is covered in case something happens. It's kind of like sanity insurance. It's going to relieve you of that worry that if something happens, the liability is going to come back on you. So either you can get insurance through PAL Canada or you can get insurance through Duo, which is D-U-U-O. So if you Google that, it's D-U-U-O. I think it's .ca, might be .com. Again, sorry, should have checked these URLs beforehand. But if you are getting any kind of liability insurance, those are the two easiest ways to go about it. Both of them have online quote forms, and both of them will give you an estimate immediately as to how much that insurance will cost you. When you decide to move forward with them, you literally just plug in your MasterCard or Visa information, and they will immediately email you your policy. Now, in many cases, if you are at a barn or a hall that's allowing you to run your own bar, they're going to require that you have both your Alcohol and Gaming Commission special occasion permit and your insurance on site. So those are two documents that you want to print off in hard copy and make sure that they are at the bar. So what that ensures is that if an inspector does show up, they can see that you have the alcohol policy in place and you've got all of your receipts stapled to it, so you can prove that you didn't go pick up a 40 at the duty free. It's also going to prove that you have the insurance, and usually the owner of the venue, if it's not yourself in your own backyard, is going to want proof of that insurance. So make sure if you are getting married anywhere other than your backyard that you are very clear on what their licensing and insurance requirements are. With regard to that insurance, some venues will require that you have $2 million of liability, some will require $5 million, and some might even require $10 million of liability. So make sure that you know what the terms of the contract with the venue state before you book that liability insurance with a second company like PAL or Duo. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, contact me if you have questions. I have it all laid out in a couple of PDFs that I'm happy to share. Now, once it comes to actually hiring bartenders to manage your bar, you're going to want to find people who are qualified. And what that means in Ontario is that they have their Smart Serve. Please do not hire bartenders who do not have their Smart Serve certification. They're professional, and ideally, you want to hire bartenders who are going to provide lots of services to make your life a little easier. Some bartenders will provide a physical bar. Some of them have super cute LED lit bars or rustic barn board bars that they can bring along. There are even some really cute trailer bars. There's a bar service out there that's a converted horse trailer, and there's a bar service out there that's a converted travel trailer. They're super cute. They come with equipment. They're well stocked, and they can absolutely guide you through the process of doing your own bar, which is really, really helpful when you have 11 billion other things on your plate. Trust me. The service of picking up your supplies, your alcohol, your mix, your ice, your garnish, it's something that you'll have to pay for, but it's something else that's off your plate on the day and the days before your wedding. So sure, you can go pick up your own alcohol, you can pick up your own ice, you can pick up your own mix, but maybe paying somebody for it might be a little bit easier than adding that to your week of wedding list. So think about that. Qualified bartenders often also have specialty cocktail recipes or the ability to make your specialty cocktail recipe, which just adds that special touch for your guests. You also want to ideally work with bartenders who've worked at your venue and who know what they're walking into. Different tent venues and barn venues and halls have different equipment, different setups. And so if your bartender is familiar with that, it's going to be really helpful in terms of the amount of behind the scenes legwork that you have to do in making sure that your bartenders have what they need. You also will probably want to find experienced bartenders who can advise on rentals. So if you are looking at a venue that provides nothing, or if you're getting married in your backyard, you need to have bartenders who can advise you as to how many highball glasses you need, how many old-fashioned glasses you need, how many champagne flutes and wine glasses, and all of the things. So if you can find bartenders who are experienced and who can help you to determine what kind of equipment you need, so helpful. And also, they can advise you as to how much of each thing to buy. It can be so daunting to figure out how much vodka and how much gin and how much rum and how much Coke and how much Diet Coke. So if you have experienced bartenders, they can help you to determine that. I also have some bar calculators that if you plug in a couple of numbers and a couple of guesses, I mean, you have to kind of guess how many of your guests are going to drink beer versus wine versus spirits. But if you can put in some basic information, the bar calculators that I have will spit out numbers of, 2-liter bottles of pop to buy and numbers of, 24 ounces of different spirits to buy. So I'm happy to share those. Reach out if you need help. Or if you're working with experienced bartenders, they will certainly be able to advise as well on how much of what things to purchase. So that kind of leads me into my third point, which is kind of the counterpoint to my second point. So point number 2 was hire professionals. Point number 3 is don't hire your friends. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with couples who say, oh, we have a friend who has their smart serve, or yeah, my sister's cousin's boyfriend's, neighbor has their smart serve. And oftentimes it goes badly. Not always, but oftentimes. I have had to scramble at the last minute to find bartenders for those friends who backed out because they had a better offer, or who got sick and didn't have a backup to offer. So hiring professionals is beneficial in so many ways, but also because they usually have a network or a team that they can send in the event that your lead bartender gets sick or something else happens. So oftentimes those friend vendors are unreliable. I've often seen them get drunk as well. I did a wedding this past summer where the bartenders were friends and they were wasted. And guess what? So were all of the guests. And that's a huge liability for you and for your venue if your guests get drunk and disorderly, if things get damaged, or if, God forbid, somebody gets hurt. So please make sure that you have professionals who are going to be monitoring people's intake instead of hiring frienders to bartend. Now, when it comes to alcohol and mixed purchases, like I said, you probably have no idea where to start, but I have calculators, professional bartenders have calculators, and really nothing replaces that professionalism. So if you're hiring your own bar staff, please make sure that you have a reputable bar calculator as well. There are online calculators from the LCBO. There are other online alcohol calculators that you can find. But do try to be as accurate as you can in your pre-purchases, because the number of times I have had to run out and grab more ice or to get wine at the end of cocktail hour because the white wine was gone. It was a hot day and everybody was drinking white and there was no white left for dinner. If you can try to avoid those circumstances, it's going to be a lot easier on your bartenders or your planners, who are going to have to be the ones that make those runs if you run short on things. So just keep in mind that really nothing replaces that professionalism. Now, like I mentioned, we have lots more resources on YouTube. We did a full bar week. It was a lot of fun during COVID, when everybody was talking about or drinking alcohol. And so those are on our YouTube site under DIY bar. There's a playlist called that. So check that out. And if you have questions at all about anything, your bar or anything wedding related, I'm here to help. My name is Amy. I'm at amy@unmistakably.you.com. Send me an email, put a comment in the video. And if you found this helpful at all, just post a little comment that says, hey, thanks for the help, or hey, I have a question. We're always happy to hear from you. Next week, please join us Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, where we're talking about booking your wedding party, which isn't really booking, but it certainly does play a large role in the overall kind of complexion of your wedding planning and your wedding day itself. And just one more reminder that our spring workshop line is definitely still up on our website, still available to purchase. We have great workshops for everything from the unsexy things like setting a realistic budget and creating a realistic plan for your day. Not sexy, but sanity saving, I promise. To the more romantic things like writing personal, meaningful, awesome vows, or how to get comfortable with your first dance. So awesome workshops over at unmistakably.com/workshops. You can sign up for them there. They're filling up fast. So if you are interested in any of those, make sure you book your tickets now. And I will see you next week. Happy planning. Have a great week. I'll talk to you soon.